He is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Happy Easter. Did you hear the good news in that reading? The women took spices to the tomb and found it empty. The text says they were perplexed. The Greek word here literally means out of resources, not knowing what to do. The women have reached the end of their sense-making ability. This, right here, is the paradigm shift. This is the beginning of resurrection. People coming to the end of their ability to make sense of something, and Jesus inviting them to go further. And the only way is to show up, to be there, not to run or distract or numb yourself, but just to be and show up. And Jesus meets you there in that murky, perplexing moment. I hope this sermon will be a reminder to all of us about resurrection and what it looks like over the course of the soul's journey. And to illustrate what I mean by that, I want to tell you a story. Just this week, I met a hitchhiker, a 61-year-old mother, who told me that backpacking saved her son's life. He was in his mid-20s, a smart computer guy, but he didn't have any friends, and he was withdrawn and depressed. She introduced him to backpacking, and after a few forays and a lot of learning, he decided to strike out on his own. Well, he hiked the entire Pacific Crest Trail solo. That's over 2,600 miles. She said, he came back a changed man. He was sovereign. And she explained that he had a self-reliance and a self-confidence that he didn't have before. He knew he could figure things out. And he used that newfound confidence to apply for jobs. And now he's 31 and he's working in a career he enjoys, and he's engaged to be married this fall. He's also hiked the Appalachian Trail, and he has plans to hike the Continental Divide Trail, which will make him a triple crowner. He did a really hard thing. He faced his depression and lack of confidence head on. He showed up for 2,600 miles. We all have moments when we're out of resources, when we come to the end of our capacity to make sense, when we're despondent or hopeless or anxious. There is always a next step, but we don't always know what that next step is. This reminds me of Joseph Campbell talking about slaying dragons on our soul's journey. We all have different dragons. Maybe it's depression, or a difficult assignment at work, a difficult conversation we know we should have with a loved one, an addiction that fits like a glove. Our tendency is to run the opposite direction. But rather than running, what if we, like the women who come to the tomb, move closer to it, to whatever that thing is that evokes fear? What is that thing for you right now? Imagine yourself taking the next step that moves you closer to the thing you fear. As you do, you will see that fear more clearly. And then once you see it, the most amazing thing happens. It begins to recede. We might be perplexed like the women at the tomb, and terrified. Fear is a healthy warning, but it shouldn't stop us. It's okay to be afraid, but do the thing that scares you. Courage is what comes after. There is always a gift in facing our demons. That is what the soul's journey is about. It's what resurrection is about. Facing fears and going beyond. As we face our fears, we gain an inner strength that serves us in all other aspects of our lives. The most rewarding moments in life come after a struggle. No matter how long we get to live this life, it is, in the grand scheme of things, very short. We are all dust, and the maid gets buried next to the CEO. All that matters is how we showed up in this life and how courageous we were. On our deathbeds, what fills our heart with the greatest regret is not all the risks we took, all the opportunities we seized, all the times we went out on a limb and looked silly. What fills our hearts with regret is the opportunities we didn't seize and the risks we did not take. Face your fears. Have the difficult conversation. Tackle the addiction. Go to the tomb. Find yourself out of resources, perplexed and terrified, and take the next step anyway. This is courage. This is resurrection. Love is what we're born with. Fear is what we learn. Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez was a Venezuelan doctor born in 1864. When he was young, he wanted to be a priest, and he tried to pursue that path for about 10 years. But he kept running from what his true calling was, which was to be a doctor. He said he was afraid to become a doctor and to hold people's lives in his hand. But he could see that his small village needed a doctor more than a priest. After receiving formal medical training in Caracas and Paris, where he was a top scholar, he eschewed more prestigious offers to return to his poor town in Venezuela. And there he excelled and became known as the greatest doctor around for all kinds of people. But he took special care for people living in poverty. He kept a bag of money outside his office for patients. They could take that money to pay for their medical appointment with him or for their own needs. And he said, most of these people do not have resources. I am not going to deny them the medical consultation they need, and I am not going to make them go through the pain of telling me that they don't have money. God will help. Courage is when you know what to do and you do it. Lack of courage is when you know what to do and you don't do it. What are you putting off in your life? What is one step you can take to move toward that thing? And perplexing though it may be, take a step forward. Jesus will meet you there. And as you come through that messy experience, because it will not be easy, but as you come through it, walking with God all the way, you will learn, grow, gain an inner strength, and emerge a different person with a new story to tell. Stories are what connect us. Stories are how we learn. If you speak from your mind, you will reach other people's minds. If you speak from your heart, you'll reach other people's hearts. If you speak with your whole life, you will change other people's lives. So this morning, as we celebrate the empty tomb and the women who courageously took the next step, let's also celebrate those messy, murky times when we feel perplexed and maybe even terrified. That is where Jesus meets us. He is risen. Alleluia.